Hello and welcome to episode 11 of Foggy with a Chance of Seagulls. I am, as always, Evan, joined by my good pal and buddy, Clark. That sounded ingenuine, but I mean it deeply. We've been friends a long time. How you doing, Clark?
I only took it in genuine once you said it wasn't genuine, but I'm doing good, although rethinking our friendship. No, I'm doing great. Happy Labor Day for you. I don't think this will come out on Labor Day, but yeah, always nice to have a Monday off, at least for myself. I know you were just saying off air that what are holidays for freelancers like yourself? So maybe just happy day for me, just Monday for you.
Yeah, I'm going to be bringing real bad vibes today. You're going to have to bring the good vibes. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to be working that hard, but we are recording on Labor Day. But this is probably coming out on Tuesday. So there's actually probably going to be a game with the Cubs that starts while we record today. So we won't know what happens there. But we kind of talked about this, but I was really ready to come in guns blazing, being like World Series, here we come at the beginning of this week. And then things took a turn in the second half of the week, which has been a little bit unfortunate. But I feel like it's kind of been, this up and down weekend, but there's been really positive developments and things that leave room for concern as well, which is maybe par for the course for this season. But I thought maybe we could just kind of go through some of the highlights and lowlights of the week.
Yeah. Well, highlight number one, Kyle motherfucking Harrison. I think that might have to be his legal middle name moving forward. Although maybe for a different reason when we get to a different game. But no, Monday night, he absolutely shoved against the Reds. That was, I would say, and maybe we can talk about this later, but one of my favorite 3 moments of the season. And I didn't even get to watch the game live. And I was following Gamecast like it was a 2010s World Series game and I was out of the country. I mean, I was so locked in. And oh my God, the first 5 of 6 first 5 batters came up and he struck them out. He ended up going 6 1/3 inning. He threw about 90 pitches and got the win and, beat a pretty good Reds lineup. A Reds lineup whose average age is about similar to his, so maybe it makes sense that he dominated them. No, that was so impressive.
Hitters, man. Yeah.
And then Alex Cobb said, "Hold my beer, little one," and was 1 out away from a no-hitter, which is a funny no-hitter in that Casey Schmidt had an error, but they called it a hit until the 4th inning. And so it didn't feel like a no-hitter until NBC Sports was flashing no-hitter everywhere. And it's interesting.
Yeah.
But Alex Cobb freaking shoved.
Those are probably some of the highlights of the week there. This was
and then Harrison the week ended.
And then, that was one of the few games recently that I've watched all the way through. I just felt my mom was there. Shout out to my mom. I think maybe she brought some good luck to him. And just to see that debut is just so electric, such I don't know. It's exactly what we were hoping for from him. And as I say this, I know I'm ignoring what happens later in the Padres series, but I think that watching him was it made me excited about now, but it made me even more excited about 2024. And I know that that's a theme that we have been talking about of just paving the way for next year. But having him at the top of the rotation next year is going to be such a difference maker. And we all thought that it would be this way. And that was the hope. And, there's going to be some bumps along the road. But for the most part, what an iconic performance. I want to say he's been having these little moments too. But, Austin Slater in center field gets it done more often than not in that Cobb no-hitter. That was not quite Gregor Blanco. Shout out to one of the best Giants of all time. Not quite Gregor Blanco level, but if the no-hitter had been preserved, it would have been close in the minds of many fans. So
it's a great point.
And I think just to round out the Red series, We secured the tiebreaker too with them, which is hugely important considering that there's a 5-way tie right now in the NL wildcard standings, which is insane. So that's a huge one. I will say, speaking of Harrison, as we in the last episode talked about, was kind of maybe the Bumgarner Lincecum to the Kane of Webb. And Webb did get canned in the last game of the series.
Oh my
God. But
God.
on the whole, our starters really showed up in that Red series, which was really good to see.
And I think that really demonstrated what a playoff series could look like. A wild card series is now the order will be different. Probably go Webb, Cobb, Harrison, but those three guys can match up against any starters in the majors. And when you've got that going in a playoff series with how good our bullpen is, our offense could score 2 runs and it'd be fine. Now, hopefully they can do a little bit more than that. But one question I had for you in regards to Cobb's no-hitter, almost no-hitter, did you think Matos could have caught that ball?
That's a great question. And you know what? I think I found myself, I had a feeling in the moment. And then when I watched it, and then I read a bunch of articles, I think Grant said something about this, or Bags, and one of the things was like, it wasn't really a catchable ball. And I kind of thought, let's go back to another big no-hitter in Giants history. That speaking of the Padres, Timmy in San Diego, about 300 pitches deep, when he had that no-hitter, absolutely drenched with sweat. But I think about a mad lad like Hunter Pence in right field, and I kind of think that he would have dove probably. And I don't fault Matos for not doing it, but I think that the Matos that we saw early this season might have tried a little harder. I don't know, but it felt catchable. And if you look at the replays, it's not that far away from his glove. And maybe it was a positioning thing. I don't know. But
it was a tough thing because if it was like no doubles defense, he's there for that ball. He's in perfect position. But they didn't want any singles. So he was moved in and like a little bit more towards the right field line. So I think it made it tough. But his speed, he almost got there. But then I believe the next day is when Yaz was activated. And in that Red series, or in that last game of the Red series, and then throughout this Padres series, his defense has been so impressive. And especially that Wednesday game, that day game that Logan Webb pitched, he was fielding balls off the bricks. He was charging things perfectly. He cut off a ball in right center, held a guy to a single. I mean, his defense in right field is so elite. And I don't think it's talked about enough because we move him around so much because he's so versatile. But as a pure right fielder, I think Yastrzemski is one of the top 2 or 3 right fielders in all of baseball, which I think goes to a larger issue with this roster construction that we're not able to like utilize that as much. But I do wonder if he's able to make that catch, not because Matos messed up, but because he's so elite. Was kind of where my head went.
It's this thing that, I feel like the announcers always love to talk about. It's the right field at, home is a specific thing to play that is unique in the league in terms of how you navigate it. And I think that things have shifted a little bit over time. I think, when people used to come in to play at Pac Bell or whatever, I think maybe there was less knowledge of what it would be, and you really see people make some like boneheaded, mistakes. And I think that doesn't happen as much now. But I think the difference between playing right field adequately and playing it at that high level is still, there is a home field advantage there. And Yaz has been doing it for a few seasons. So I do think that if he was there, he maybe would have caught it. But I think you're right, though, that in the lore of it, like, I just don't know if that no-hitter, like, remember, like, didn't Chris Heston throw a no-hitter? Am I making that up?
Yeah.
It's like,
the Mets,
I kind of feel like, Cobb's a great Giant. but I kind of feel like that no hitter would have gone that way a little bit in terms of like ultimately being for Con a little bit, just because I don't know. It just didn't like, maybe it's just because I wasn't watching it live, but like it just didn't have like the feeling of a no hitter, and ultimately it wasn't. But
yeah, I think part of that too, at least when I was watching the game, the fact that they changed an error, or they changed a hit to an error, and it was an error. I don't know if, I don't think we've talked about this, but there's been this trend throughout baseball this year where they're calling so many more things hits. Baggerly has written about this a lot on The Athletic. And I think Eno Saris might have had a piece about it too. But it's been this really interesting trend where I think baseball unofficially kind of told their scorekeepers to, when in doubt, make it a hit, because hits are so much harder to come by nowadays. And I think that's in part, at least, to how fast and hard and with so much spin these guys are throwing with. So kind of a benefit of the doubt to the hitters. But yeah, Casey threw a ball. It was high and wide, and Wade was able to catch it, but off the bag. And they ruled it a hit at first. But yeah, it was an error. And Kruko on the broadcast kept hammering that point, like, oh, a few years ago that would have been an error, and then it got changed ultimately. And then by that point, it's like, well, he still hasn't given up a hit then, but he had. So it just kind of lost its luster, so to speak, in that way. But it was still fun. And I think regardless, seeing Harrison go 6 1/3, throw 90 some pitches, strike out 11 guys one night, and then Cobb come out and throw 130 pitches and get, 8 2/3 of the way to a no hitter was such a rallying moment for the Giants. And it felt like so much momentum was coming from that. And then fast forward to today, and we won one game since Tuesday night.
Yeah. And before we fully look at the Padres series, I think too, it's like, it really felt like, Kapler's a polarizing guy, and that's always going to be true. But I think that he really, he stepped up to the moment. I think that he's been under fire a lot recently. And I think that a lot of it is, the perception of him and the front office as these unfeeling stat heads. We're limiting the pitch count, blah, 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 all this stuff. And ultimately, like, Farhan's not emailing him during the game saying, send him out for the, to pitch another inning. Like, that's
do you know
call. That? I mean, we've been talking, and that's what he told me. But I think, like, it shows some feel. And I think that it was a big I don't know, like, it's considering Kapler was booed recently for a pitching change, that I think he let him go and then pulled him at the right time to, like, to have a standing ovation and let him take it in, and everything just feels like, I don't know, it felt good. And also another thing to mention from that series is, I think before that series is when Tyro had his little speech.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that because we had already recorded. That's right. That was the Sunday night game against the Braves.
Yeah, which was
go
a big
more
win
into
too.
That. Yeah,
because we were looking overmatched by that team. But yeah, if you hadn't seen already, Tyro Estrada, our second baseman, who's kind of, I don't know what he's like in the clubhouse, but strikes me as a quieter guy. Stepped up to the plate a little bit and gave a speech through, forget who it was, one of the coaches, I think, translated for him, and essentially was just saying, like, we can play better than this. Like, this team, we don't have to do anything different. It's just like, we have to play to, like, the level that we are out,
stay
and then
focused. And
exactly. And I think, and I was like, I'm here for it. And it was working in the end of the Braves series, the Red series, even though we dropped that last one, I was like, we still, are playing well. And then I was like, my optimism was at an all-time high. We get that 7-2 win. First game of the Padres series. We're getting Yaz back. He's hitting homers and stuff, which is important. And then, I think the biggest bummer of this series with the Padres is that this is the series to bury the Padres in the standings and put them completely out of mind. And then now you see how they're playing, their rotation starting to pitch to the way that they can. And, you forget that it's Juan Soto, Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado, a preview of what we're talking about later, but MVP candidate Ha-Sung Kim, in the lineup at the same time. Yeah. And it's a scary team. And then it's a crowded field that we're in right now. And I think that we had a real chance to put some separation between us and them. But as when you look at the standings most days, as I am wont to do, what often stands out is that run differential for different teams. And the Padres have been in the positive zone, like plus 50 or 60 or something for a while.
Year. Yeah.
And you see why. It's just because they lose those extra inning games. And we were not able to take them to extras because the offense decided to take a few days off. Started Labor Day a few days early, I guess, with this series.
I think what's interesting is I agree with everything you were saying. And yet, looking back, it's like it was more important to get the tiebreak over the Reds than win games against the Padres. So the games we won and the series that we won was more important. But it's so deflating to lose to that Padres team for me. For some reason, I just get so annoyed when I see Tatis hit an opposite field home run in the first inning, and then Soto comes up and they're chumming it up in the dugout. And I'm like, this team should be sad. They have disappointed so much. I enjoy their sadness so much. Gary Sanchez hit a homer against us. That felt cruel. I mean, it was just.
Is Gary Sanchez? Is he one that got away?
No,
I was just thinking about this, but obviously, no. But I pulled up his stats before we recorded, and the man has, at least on Baseball Reference, in 70 games with the Padres, has a 2.6 WAR, which I know that in terms of the being a catcher, he's probably not as good there, and you're losing some value there for sure. But this man has hit 19 homers with the Padres and is slugging over 500, and for an almost 800 OPS. And you go, what a crazy season he's had to
Well, and his on base percentage is 280. And that's the thing. I think that he never would have fit in with this team. The way Farhan and Gabe run a team, it's like a guy who barely gets on base but hits a homer every once in a while is not what they value at all. And it's not really what I like watching either. So I'm kind of.
I agree with that. But would you say that that's altogether that different from what Sable offers? Because if you pull up Sable's line,
ultimately the
left field,
the ability to play the outfield,
that's a big difference. But in terms of the offensive profile, Sable's kind of weak man, poor man's Gary Sanchez, which is a crazy thing to say. But I even forgot that Tatis was on the Padres, and that's a crazy lineup to be be where they are. And so I agree. I don't think that it was necessary, quote unquote, for us to put them away. But I just feel we've got to worry about the Reds, the Marlins, the Cubs, there's a lot of teams in play, and so I think it just would have simplified the race a little bit, just to 100%. We don't have to worry about them anymore. But they're only 5.5 games out or something right now.
I think it's more important to talk about how many teams they have to vault, though. I mean, they would have to beat, and there's no way, because so many of these teams are playing each other down the stretch, that there's no way for them to take over 3 of these teams, in my opinion. That's not based in statistical analysis. That's just my own opinion, I guess. But
no, I think it's most likely. I just feel we're not in a position to really be. Yeah, exactly. And I think that it gets some momentum going for them and whatever. But I mean, it's fine. I think in this series, I think we should talk a little bit about what has gone wrong and what's gone well. And I think what's gone poorly is that the young guys that maybe look like they were just ready to be part of a regular rotation Beck and Harrison got absolutely destroyed in not that many innings, gave up a lot of runs, which is sad to see.
However, my boy Keaton.
Yes,
my boy
that was going to be the
Keaton.
thing. Yeah,
Go ahead.
5 innings
Sorry, don't
of
let me
scoreless
cut
relief.
you off.
Yep. No. It's worth mentioning. 5 innings of scoreless relief there, and I think he has kind of a maybe it's a W in his name, but kind of a Webbish quality to him, where I feel like it might take him a second to settle into like a more regular role on this team. But I think it's there if he just puts his head down, stays consistent, which is very much in line with the type of person it seems like that he is, and just stays at it. I think that he might be able to crack the rotation eventually because I don't know. He's got an effective combination of pitches that feels like it could play at the major league level. Definitely as like a number 5 guy or 5-6 swing man kind of thing.
Well, the Giants are in this really interesting position, both with the outfield and the starting pitching, where we have these young guys who have really shown out in the second half of the year in particular, but throughout the year. Mm-hmm. But we have these veterans that we signed this offseason who we can't really do anything with. We can't send them down. We can't. And so in the outfield, it's Haniger and Conforto. Conforto is hurt right now. Haniger just came back. But are they that clearly better than Ramos and Matos? I don't think so. I mean, they probably are better in like a 1-game playoff type situation. But over the course of the month of September, part of me is kind of like, God, I wish we had Ramos and Matos getting reps and showing what they can do, especially because Elliot Ramos is just crushing the ball in the minors. I think Matos has already had 2 homers since he was sent down. And the PCL, take all stats with a grain of salt, but like they're showing that they're big leaguers. And because of these off-season deals that we made, we can't keep them in the big leagues. And the same goes for the starting rotation. We've got Stripling, we've got Wood, we've got Manaea, we had DeSclafani. He's been hurt and on the 60-day IL. But Wynn, Beck, Harrison, I think are all clearly better than them at this point. Even with the bad starts that Tristan and Kyle had this weekend. But I think it's such an interesting situation that the front office is in, because do you go for it this September? We're in the playoff hunt. And I think yes is the clear answer. Yes, we're going for it. But what are the right buttons to push? And you and I don't know. I mean, ultimately, or like maybe you do.
What?
I should just ask you the question. No, but no, I think it's like the whole point of us talking about this is because these things are interesting to us. And I think this dynamic is something very unique that I haven't seen on a team in a while. And it's ultimately such a positive. Like we've got these rookies that have shown out so much. But we're in this kind of in between where Haniger and Yaz come up this week. And I'm like, God, I really wanted to keep Ramos and Matos up. And then Yaz has a really good couple days. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I love Mike Yastrzemski. He's not included in this. But
well, I've referenced this before, but it kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's the sickness of occasionally reading Tim Kawakami, but I think that it's like this 2 timelines kind of thing, a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I was wondering where you were going with that. That's so funny. But no, I think you're on it. No, hammer this point. I think this is a great take.
No, but I think, when I think about, as we've talked about many times this year, the biggest positives are the young guys coming up. And also, I think that was part of the plan the whole time. And I think like, the way that the front office talks about Bailey, for instance, is they were not expecting him to be this good this soon and be a contributor at this point in the season. I think you really look at how we set up this year, and it was to pave the way for Bart to be that guy. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And he just hasn't been. And I think I'm almost positive that there was no preseason plan to have Wade Meckler be playing this much time in the outfield.
There's
I'm
no
pretty
chance.
sure.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, I think the plan was to be trying to do this 2021 thing, getting the most value that we can out of veterans, putting them in positions to succeed, and just kind of filling some holes with some young guys. Hopefully Bart shows up, Harrison shows up. You know what I mean? Maybe Ramos or Matos comes up and does something. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's times like these where I know that I've said this before, but I miss the 40-man roster. I think it's such a loss for the game. And I think it's I think that like the function that September holds in the baseball season should be allowing teams to figure out what is their best combination going into the off season. And I think that this is, I don't know if it's now more than ever, but now as much as ever, injuries happen. Guys are coming, guys are getting injured all the time, coming back at the end of the year. You have to force a young guy off the roster to keep an older guy on. And I just feel like having 40-man roster allows minor league players to accrue major league service time, get a major league salary, and allows the teams to just see what they've got and try different combinations that they wouldn't be able to otherwise. And also, I think there's the whole argument made about back in the Bochy days, the 40-man roster meant that we'd have 16 pitchers, coming into the game, doing every a matchup with every batter. But now there's rules that prevent against that with the 3-batter thing, and so it doesn't feel like that's necessary. So I don't know. It doesn't do me well to be angry about 40-man rosters not being a thing, but I think this Giants team could really benefit from something like that. But obviously, they don't have that at their disposal.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, forecasting this week ahead for the Giants. So you said we've got the Cubbies starting pretty soon while we're recording, but playing them in Chicago for the first 3 games of this week. And then I have to pull it up. I already forgot who we're playing after that.
The Rockies.
Oh, my God. We were talking about this before we recorded, but those games against the Rockies are so crucial. It just so crucial to what we are trying to do.
Well, I think, the Cubs series is decently evenly matched right now. I mean, we're matched in the standings, I believe exactly. No, they're up 3 games on us, but they're not unbeatable. I mean, if we can beat the Reds, we can beat the Cubs, I think, in the similar way. But we've got Cubs, Rockies, Guardians at home as well, and then Rockies again. And I think it's important that we win a lot of games in the next few weeks, because then we end the season on D-backs, Dodgers, Padres, Dodgers. And so it's really important we stack those wins. Yeah, I know. I mean, granted, the Dodgers will have long clinched by that time, so who knows what they're going to do.
But they don't care about that when they play us.
No, they truly don't. And their B team is as good as us. So
I'm curious. I'm really curious to see if they're kind of neck and neck with the Braves, because getting that number 1 seed in the playoffs on the National League side would be really vital for them. So they might still be playing for something, even though they'll have already wrapped up the division.
That's true. But
speaking of which, that Braves-Dodgers series this past week was, oh my God, was that fun. I mean, Acuna, well, actually, let's hold that thought because we're going to come back to this in just a second. But those 2 teams facing off this weekend was really fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's I don't think you listen so much, but I listen semi-frequently to Baseball Today with Chris Rose and Trevor Plouffe on John Boy Media. Not a sponsor. But they were really hyped for this series in particular. I think obviously, as you had hinted, the MVP implications of everything, but also just as a fan of baseball, obviously I want the Giants in the World Series to win it, and probably that's what I want. And obviously, I want the Dodgers to do badly because that's what I've been raised to believe, and that's what I want. And also, as a fan of baseball, I think an NLCS between these two teams would be great. Just in terms of its firepower against firepower. I mean, it's just the Braves have a 6 more wins right now than the Dodgers, but these are two powerhouses of the game, like at the top of their game. And so do you remember what the series ended up being? The results from it?
No, I was hoping you would remember.
No, but I can pull it up right now.
I'm looking at it right now too. But yeah, just watching Spencer Strider strike out Mookie and Acuna hitting a ball 121 miles per hour for a home run. Yeah, it's just the like peak athleticism and just impressive baseballing that as fans of the Giants we see sometimes.
Right. Well, and
we love it when we see it. Like Kyle Harrison could fit in that series. Like he's got the like tools for it. He's obviously young and still developing, but like still like we don't have a ton of guys who are that level of like athlete baseball player. Like that's pretty stunning watching them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's well, the Dodgers actually dropped 3 or 4 to the Braves, which makes me happy. But I think it's I think maybe now we can transition to talking about the MVP race. And part of why I think that's interesting in terms of this team is these two teams is because the Dodgers now, I think they've always been trying to be, but now they really are the Yankees of the 90s and early 2000s. And the Yankees are no longer that. But it's, it's two marquee players from other franchises they took on, and they're now both in the MVP race, and they're their 2 best players. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, obviously, a lot of their success comes from their homegrown guys and being able to like have that churn of just like guys coming up from the minors, and that allows you to go get these guys. But it's like you have to like correctly evaluate which guys are going to be long-term capital G guys, because you look at a team like the Angels and they cannot they
have the same firepower, but they have nothing going on behind it,
and it's pretty tremendous to see. And then on the Braves side too, I mean, just what they've accomplished with homegrown players, and then bring in 2 great Oakland A's is really something to see, which is unfortunate.
Well, let's get into the MVP discussion that we kind of planned for the end of this podcast. So right now, September 9th, we've got about a month left in the season. I think this NL MVP race, I mean, we both think this is just going to be a really exciting race to the finish line. And it involves mostly these 2 teams that we're talking about. But my question to you, Evan, is just at first glance, who's finishing behind Wilmer Flores for National League MVP?
No one. Wilmer's at the top. I mean, if you really define, let's set the stage for MVP things. I think any discussion about MVP requires defining what an MVP is, and I think that there's kind of the 2 schools of thought. Is it the most valuable player to a team, or is it just the player that brings the most offensive, maybe plus defensive value to a team, and kind
who's
of
the best
those
player
intangibles from it? And I think when you look at the WAR, it probably doesn't quite add up, but Wilmer Flores has been probably the MVP of this team in terms of like keeping us afloat at all through these languid months of summer. He's really done it. But it's going to be a tight race, and I think the intrigue of, again, Brave Dodgers was to see Betts and Acuna both doing it, and they both had their moments where it's like, oh, that guy's the MVP. Oh no, that guy's the MVP. I think I don't know the stats. at least on Baseball Reference, Mookie Betts has a full 1 WAR lead at the moment. It's kind of insane that he's changed his game to include hitting probably going to be 40 home runs by the time the season's over. Absolutely insane.
Mookie has been on such a heater, was on such a heater in the month of August. He accumulated 3 WAR in August alone, which no one on the Giants has done that all season.
I laugh or else I cry. You know what I mean?
Actually, I think Tyro has possibly cleared the 3 WAR threshold for us this year, but that's not what we're discussing directly. No, he has not. Wishful thinking. You know who's second on the Giants in WAR, though? This is not the discussion we're supposed to have, but is Patty Barrels, which
that makes sense.
Very impressive. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, Mookie has just been on an absolute heater. I think Acuna has been more consistent throughout the year. Yeah. He started off hot, and Acuna just etched his name into history by being the first player ever to hit 30 home runs and steal 60 bases. The closest people have gotten to that was Ricky Henderson. One year hit 28 home runs. Barry one year stole 25 bases when hitting 73 home runs. I think he stole a ton of bases that year, which is kind of slept on. But yeah, Acuna is doing something that we've never seen in baseball before. And if you watch him, it's just eye-popping. He, as I already mentioned, hit a ball 121 miles per hour this weekend. And I don't even know if the Giants know you can hit it over 100 miles per hour. So making all these shots at the Giants. This is really cathartic, actually. But no. So we've got those two, I think, are at the top. I think Freddie Freeman is right there, too. He and Matt Olson are, I think, ultimately limited by their defensive responsibilities. And Mookie, in particular, his defensive versatility, I think, has been like just astounding this year. But Olson already has like 120 RBIs this year. He's getting close to hitting 50 home runs. Freeman has hit... I saw some stat where Freddie Freeman has multiple months this year where he hit 20 doubles, and that had never happened before once or something like that. It was like, yeah. So
it's the field is so stacked, and I mean, I think it's not a crazy thing to say that I think on the position player side, the NL's got the AL beat by a mile, I think, especially, when you consider that Ohtani is a two-way guy. And just the talent level of the NL position players is, I honestly, I look at these numbers and I forget that it's possible to have, a 300, 400, 500, stat line. You know what I mean? It just doesn't feel like an attainable thing for anybody on our team. But what's crazy about the Olsen Freeman thing too is I think it's such a fascinating thing because, it was hard for Freddie to leave, famously he crying coming back to the Braves. I think he didn't want to go. I think he wanted to stay. And then
felt like a slap in the face when they chose Olsen over him.
Yeah. But it's a crazy situation where Olsen belonged in Atlanta and Freeman belonged on the Dodgers, on the Dodgers, and he and
Draves
as
East.
Good as but even the Tracy's, the Dodgers are even beyond as good as Olsen has been. Freeman has had an even better season, which is I don't think the Braves are sad to have lost him. But at the same time, he's playing out of his mind, and Freeman and Betts both is it's what you're saying. It's just the athleticism to be at, they're not old, but they're squarely in their 30s, and to be playing at this level is insane. And one more thing I want to draw attention to for the NL MVP race on the position player side is, well, not just on the position player side, but anyway, for some reason, Blake Snell is 10th in WAR for NL batting leaders. So something's wrong with Baseball Reference there. But in this WAR configuration, the Padres have Snell, Tatis, and Kim in the top, which is kind of insane to think about. But yeah, I mean, I think the NL is going to be a really fun playoffs this year, just seeing these different guys go at each other. And I think it's really going to be, I think there's arguments for and against, but there's a reason that NLB, what is going on in my brain? I need to eat some food maybe. But that the league expanded how many playoff spots there are for this reason specifically, to have this many teams in the hunt. I know I'm going all around the world here but I quickly want to say to the Angels, apropos of nothing, shame on you. You to jail with you. Because I think they're one of those teams that was hanging around and then waved the white flag, and what a damn shame. But it's an exciting time for baseball right now. And I'll definitely be tuned in regardless of what happens with the Giants.
I totally agree. And I think putting into context just the star power and the excitement around the game is so important, because that's part of why we're here. I think we really believe strongly and obviously trying to find what's fun about this Giants team and any Giants season really, but we're also just fans of baseball. And I think baseball is at such a great place with the stars that are in the game right now. We've got young stars, we've got veteran stars. I mean, baseball's in such a good place. And then next year we'll have a very similar MVP race, but Ohtani for the Giants, added to that. So wishful thinking, but quickly forecasting what. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Just since you said it, do you think that Ohtani fits on this Giants team?
I think I might be so biased in saying this. I am very biased. However, I really don't think there's a better team that fits him. If he's looking for a team that can help him get to the playoffs and is like the spiritual antithesis to the Angels, that is the Giants. We don't have any stars, but we have strength by numbers, to steal a slogan by the Warriors. But we have so much depth. We have so many young players who have demonstrated such an ability to play at a high level, especially in their rookie year, who are only going to get better. We've been so impressive since Farhan took over at developing pitchers and helping pitchers kind of find their form. And I think Alex Cobb, who pitched with Ohtani in Anaheim, can really attest to that. And there's nothing more iconic for a left-handed hitter than to hit a splash hit. And if
left-handed hitters love hitting at Oracle Park.
I didn't say that. I said elite left-handed hitters with once in a generation power love hitting at Oracle Park, AT&T, Pac Bell. So, and yes, SBC Park erasure right there. I don't acknowledge. But no, I do think we are such a great team for him. But any team would be great for him if they're not the goddamn Angels. So
yeah, it's true. Angels
what do
go
you
to
think?
hell. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just I mean, it really comes down to what he wants to do in terms of how he wants to approach the pitching side of things, because I think it just drastically changes what is going to happen. And I don't really see him giving up pitching. I mean, I don't think that I think probably the best thing he could do for the longevity in his career is stay a hitter. But I mean, this is a man who's still playing when he probably quote unquote shouldn't, but he just wants to, finish a historic year of batting. And I think he wants to do it at the highest level. So I kind of agree. I think that he does fit on this team. Where he doesn't fit as great is that he takes up a DH spot. And I think we're going to have to do some shuffling to figure out what exactly makes sense there. But you make room for Shohei Ohtani. But
Right.
Thanks for indulging me on that. I just was curious to see your current valuation on it.
100%. And I do think the Harrison buildup this year, not the same type of situation by any means to Ohtani, but we very intentionally kind of slow played him this year. And he never threw 6 innings in a start. He barely threw 5 innings in any start in the minors this year. And his second big league start, he throws 90 pitches, 6 1/3 innings, strikes out 11, and is like, oh, he can start. Because the last episode, I was even saying well, I see him more as an opener who can get there if he is efficient with pitches. But he wasn't even that efficient with pitches, and we let him go 6 1/3, and probably would have kept him in there if he was rolling in that 7th inning. And I think for Shohei, when he wants to get built back up as a pitcher, he'll want an organization that isn't trying to go for immediate gain, that he wants to, and you were mentioning this in our last episode too, he's had some Tommy John scares that he doesn't want to tear his UCL, which also in the last episode I was calling a joint or a muscle. I couldn't figure it out. It literally has the word ligament in the acronym.
The UCL joint.
I'm not a doctor.
Everybody was thinking that you were, but I'm glad that
I know. I really give off doctor vibes. Anyway, back to my point. But no, I just think we've shown that we can slow play and develop a guy. And maybe the development is Shohei, we're not going to have you pitch that much during the regular season. We'll keep you, healthy, and you'll do bullpens and build the arm strength up. But we want you for the playoffs. We don't want you for a June game where you throw 120 pitches, because we need you to win that game for us because we're out of the race already,
Yeah.
But anyway, that's for the offseason when we're not in the middle of a playoff chase. But exciting things for the Giants. Hopefully we can start putting some wins together, but we're such a hot and cold team. So
yeah,
I imagine some of the same.
Shout out. It's icy hot vibes. Shout out Shaq. Do you know what I mean? That's really
shout out Shaq.
Shout out DJ Shaq.
Sour Diesel. Or no, DJ Diesel. Sour Diesel, something else.
Wow, SMH. You're not a real Shaq fan. By the way, I love that Shaq loves Steph Curry. Anyway, I think that as we've devolved to basketball, it is time to end this week's episode. But thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Go Giants, and we will see you next week.